Kate Milafalcho, welcome to Irish Granny Tarot. We're doing our Saturday book, Land of the Gods by Helena Blavatsky. And this is video number 3. I lost track. Video number 3. And turns out that this is my notes. It's actually shorter than I thought. I thought I had twice as much left to do to fill a whole video. This is going to be probably a shorter video, and I should have added it to the last one, so I apologize for that. Just, not paying attention here. So we're on part 8, the wisdom of the sages, in which they tell her about the importance of self-control and firmness of character and individuality. And before coming to this place, she said she had often been told that occultism and mysticism, they were only for dreamers and the superstitious with their heads in the clouds. And she now knows that self-reliance is important, and you have to use discernment and develop knowledge of your soul. You need to push against the resistance of society to become strong. And she reminds everyone that hard lessons help us to grow. And it helps to cope with difficulties in life if you can try to look at them that way. It's not easy, but, ask yourself, God, what is this unwanted Bill trying to teach me? So you have to fight our battles and not wait passively for nature to fight them for us. The more we're tempted by the physical world, the harder the battle and the stronger we'll grow if we resist. I think she's talking about the keto diet. I'm not sure. She said, for example, the battle that the Buddha fought and won because he was overshadowed by the tree of wisdom, that symbolic thing, the Bodhi tree. So this was revealed by the Greek philosopher Plotinus long ago, and is still beyond our grip, that challenges strengthen us. Only God exists in the universe, and they call it the real, R-E-A-L, because it's not external and not personal, and we don't have the brains or the language to adequately describe it. So, only the real exists, and all rest is illusion created by the real. So, because no one can see no one can see their own face without a mirror. The real uses substance as a mirror to reflect the real. So this is a reflection of God. We are a mirror of God. I like that. That's interesting. To look within yourself, you see the universal mind, and you see the real perceiving its own substance. Okay. And the sages say that the universal spirit the universal spirit called the world into existence by the power of will. And all great religions talk about a trinity, the Father, Son, and Spirit. And this is a metaphor, a universal metaphor. The Father is the will, intention. The Son is the thought, the idea. And the Spirit, the ghost, is the creative power of the Father acting through the Son. And by this power, thoughts of the Father become manifest, and the visible world is created into existence. See, it's simple, right? Go back 30 seconds and listen to that again. In Islam, God is God, and there is nothing besides God. It's all. And humans, similarly, we create our own little world, and when we are introspective, we direct our thoughts to the center of our consciousness in our heart and see what's going on in ourselves. Soul energy is the medium between the center and the outside. So spirit and matter, it's like creator and creation. It's like God and nature. The soul is the product of the universal will put into action by centripetal activity of universal imagination. So we are the microcosmic counterpart of the great microcosm. I didn't say that right. I'm going to say that again. So forget that. Start over. We are the microcosmic counterpart of the great macrocosm of nature. As above, so below. So direct your mind to your center, and you're going to meet resistance. It's a reaction. And the stronger power that you apply, the stronger your soul will become and eventually transform you to a higher form of matter. And instead of this gross meaning material, substantial material body. And before that, you'll be able to act upon the matter with the power of your soul and cure your ills and those of others and do many psychic things. So this is kind of an explanation for developing spirituality, developing psychic ability, developing a higher vibration, and evolving your soul. It's all of a piece. So centering yourself and looking within your heart and struggling to make that connection strengthens you. So the more you try, the stronger it gets. And eventually you will evolve yourself in the process of doing that work. Because the activity of the soul is not limited by the physical. It extends far into the universal mind. That's plasma physics. Humans look for knowledge on the outward plane, and we're looking in the wrong direction. We need to start by seeking within. He says they will perish with their illusions. Then he quotes the Bible. The ways of the worldly wise are foolishness in the eyes of the eternal. Better to have spiritual understanding, and it'll give you power. For example, clairvoyance. And then this next statement I wrote in the margin. Is this harsh? He said, thousands work hard their whole lives and accomplish nothing. They would do better if they left the work undone. So more people hurt their health without curing their ills, and they teach error without truth, and they seek the worthless without things of value. So he's making observations about the way we lead our lives. External obstacles are created by our inner world. And then I wrote, is this unfair? Most people are too weak to resist the demands of circumstances, and they don't dive into the depths of their soul. So what makes people weak? Is that karma? Is it genetic? I mean, what is that? He said it's essential. And I feel like I'm really ragging on people's religious beliefs, and I'm really not. I hope people take this right. But he says it's essential to break free from the bondage of religious thoughts. And it takes courage. You're going to face contempt and sneers and ridicule and fear. I think that's important to remember. You will be scared into staying with it. The vast majority drown out the voice of reason with the intellect and with things of the world, and they starve their spirit. Then he explains the crucifixion of Jesus as a metaphor. To accept the challenge of a struggle, to resist the temptations of the world, to look into the soul and achieve spiritual growth. And he says, we instead get used to our chains. I think that's a very interesting statement. It is the curse of every evil act that it forever must give birth to evil. And he says humans struggle with our animal instincts, and in each human is the potential for good, and it can be developed in the proper circumstances. But we have to choose to develop our base instincts or develop our soul, evil versus good. And we contain the seeds of both. All of us contain the seeds of both. The continual rush after money, more comfort, more pleasure, after we already possess all we require, which characterizes our present civilization, is not necessarily a sign of greed, viciousness, and moral depravity, but it is rather caused by the instinctive impulse inherent in the human constitution to reach something higher and better, but it's expressing itself on the physical plane. Humans intuitively know that no matter how wealthy or famous they may be, they have not yet reached a state in which they will be contented to rest. They know that they must still keep on striving for something, but they don't know what that something is. Not knowing the higher life, they strive for more of those things which the lower life affords, and thus wastes their energies on the attainment of useless things. Thus, the curse of the world and the root of all evil is ignorance. The curse of humankind is the ignorance of their essential nature and final destiny. The efforts of a true system of religion and science ought to be, above all, to remove this stupidity. Where did I go here? Ignorance and conceit are related. The ignorant hate someone wiser than themselves, and you can tell how long ago it's been since I've read this book, because in the margin I wrote, therefore, the Republicans' censure of Adam Schiff. So the ignorant hate someone wiser than themselves, and those who strive for true inner wisdom often are singled out for scorn and persecution. And then I wrote, those who are educated in darkness hate the light. And in the margin I wrote, DeSantis and MAGA. So wherever darkness exists, there exists an abhorrence of light. Wherever an ignorant human enters, their imperfections enter. Wherever ignorance resides, there is an entourage of suspicion, envy, and fear. Wouldn't it be more within the scope of true science to enlighten humankind about their true nature than to invent theories regarding the causes of phenomena they don't know and can't prevent? We have to be careful. I don't like to get too tough on science these days. There's enough of that already. Science is good, just has to be taken the right way. So success comes from the cooperation of many, and the more evolved are needed to reach down and assist those who are on their upward way. Those below are needed for support, as a rock needs a solid road. And as Whitley Strieber reminded us, until we're all at that point, nobody's going anywhere. So it behooves us to help. Throughout time, some people have sought to attain a higher life, and often these communities isolate from the struggles of the world, and then they degrade into indolence and superstition, and they lose the knowledge of humans' true nature. And I think we're seeing that happening right now. But he, as an example, uses the degradation of the clergy. Middle Ages, the church life became centers for hypocrites, with the idol robbing the people. What happened? The Reformation. And then they went the other way. They became Mike Pence. So, however, are those who help the poor and the sick and the noble. Whoever helps the poor and the sick, it's a noble purpose for the benefit of humanity. But despite good works, you can do good works but not have developed your potential of your inherent spiritual powers. You have to do both. You might do good works, but you can't heal, and you can't truly know your soul, and you don't understand your abilities, the potential you have for things like levitation and trances and stuff. Or you might be inclined to call these things supernatural or miracles, because we're not spiritually evolved. And it's important to be open-minded to the fact that we do have these abilities. We just haven't nurtured them. Good works are necessary, but not enough. So he talks about religious rituals, baptisms, and confirmations. What they do is they symbolize spirituality, and they bring an awareness to those who wouldn't be thinking about it. Do those who enter a church, an animal, come out an animal still? I don't know. Good works are good, but you must study your soul and develop latent human faculties. We should put aside the ceremonies and the litanies and the rosaries and begin our search within. And he's not saying don't do those things if you get some sense of peace from them or whatever. Don't stop doing them. Do more. And we need to purge dogmatism and sophistry. Become like children. Remove all the rubbish of error and superstition and ages of ignorance. We need to dig deep and learn the true meaning of the dogma and the symbols and the books, and not just the outward part of it. Stop investing God with human attributes. Base your doctrine on the intrinsic dignity of divine principles in humanity, and not increasing the fears of punishment to force people to seek salvation. He said there will be ages for light to penetrate through the veil of materialism and superstition, which covers religion. It's going to take a long time because they're intransigent. Change is slow. It is going on, though. We just don't, it's slow. So it's resisted by fashion, not in style, to spend a lot of time thinking big thoughts. People kind of make fun of you, You tend to start limiting your social circle to people who think the same way, because it's hard, to talk about UFOs to my neighbor, and he looked at me like I was completely a lunatic. So anyway, messengers have arrived from the east, the land of light, bringing gifts. And this is the metaphor of the Magi. I mean, all of these stories are encoded. They're simple and easy to remember. And the point is not that three really rich king guys rode around on camels in the desert till they found Jesus to bring him these strange gifts. The gifts represented something. They represented something. The enlightened should create spaces of learning without the disadvantages of Orthodox communities that exist now, that are tied to religious dogma, so that the tree of life could unfold without being encumbered by the weeds of superstition and error. The adept says, yes, establish theosophical monasteries if you can find anyone prepared to enter. And she asks, we don't have a teacher. She asks him, will you do it? And he says, wherever there is a want, the supply won't fail to come, for there is not a vacuum in nature. I think that's his way of saying somebody will show up. Part 9, a magical journey. She heard a bell ring, and he left her, and she looked around at all the books. So she's still in this library place. And she meets the incarnation of the intellectual principle, the thoughts of wise monks, and is told, I have to do his work when the old gentleman is asleep. I'm not quite sure what the point was in that. So we are all forms produced by thought. Beings of a higher order can assume whatever form they find convenient for their purpose. Be careful selecting guides, both spiritual and physical. There are many false prophets, many charlatans engaging in ancient wisdom and secrets for profit and power. You see them on YouTube all the time. It's remarkable. The blind leading the blind, which I feel like I need stronger glasses. That's all I can say. So she asks for an occult power to take with her. And he tells her that he'll give her the ability to see elementals, by fumigation with a powder, like burning this powder. So he burned some powder, and as the smoke grew, the room disappeared until she realized that she was underwater with a light above. She rose to the surface, and she saw an ocean with the moon above it, and she saw a distant shore that looked to her like Sri Lanka. And she saw 3 elementals. They were like mermaids or sirens, and they invited her home, and they made a home out of shells and pearls in a coral reef. And the leader touched her and said to her, touched her shoulder, and when she touched her shoulder, Blavatsky remembered nothing else. It was over. So now we're on the end, chapter 10, or part 10. So she awoke from that experience of these mermaids and found that she was sleeping under the pine tree in the mountains next to the water. She could see the valley. She could hear the waterfall. And she says to herself, oh, this was quite the dream. And she discovered a lily in the buttonhole of her coat. Now, I didn't write this down, but while she was in the monastery, one of the adepts had been, the Joan of Arc person had given her a lily and put it in the buttonhole of her coat. And in her pocket, she found the silver coins that had been turned into a lump of gold. She found that. So she hurried to the inn, and she found a book, The Secret Symbolism, and it was in the room in the hotel. They had promised her they would give her a book. Remember, they said nobody will be able to, don't worry about who sees it, because if they're not ready for it, it's not going to be remarkable to them. So she sees this book. And inside it said, friend, study this book practically. Bring the circle into a square. Mortify the metals. Calcinate and purify them of all residue. When you have succeeded, we shall meet again. I shall be with you when you need me. And it's signed, yours fraternally, Theodorus. That was the adept guy, the monk. And she ends the book, in conclusion, she says, terrestrial life is nothing but a hallucination. The end. So this was a very interesting book. I think given the other books we've done previously, the Hermetic Principles, the Kybalion, we've done I can't even remember. We've done a variety of different metaphysical sorts of philosophical books. And I didn't feel like much of anything in the book was brand new or shocking, and it shouldn't have been because it's all ancient philosophy. But revived for her time and place, it was new, and it was probably earth-shattering to many of the people who heard this. And she was considered by some to be really enlightened and have all kinds of powers. She, like I said, she claimed the ability to materialize and to dematerialize and to levitate and telekinesis and telepathy and just all sorts of abilities. But she was also looked at with a jaundiced eye by other people. And I don't know enough about her to come to any kind of conclusion personally, but I do think everything that she says, although some of it is in kind of a dated delivery, everything she says, I've heard it before, it makes sense, I don't know. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this satisfies the viewer who wanted to talk about Blavatsky, and we'll read cards on her here in the next day or two. Please, if you have questions about her that you'd like me to read cards on, please let me know. And Allie and I are going to schedule a conversation about this. I don't know what her schedule is like, when she'll be finished the book. I actually was surprised that it was as short as it was. I forgot my notes were as short as they were, and I thought I'd be finishing it next week. So it may be a week or so before we have our conversation. But There you go. So thank you for sticking around for this little abbreviated last video, and I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll be back with the cards here in a day or two, and in the meantime, Slán go fóill. Sláinte.